Life in Eureka, California was supposed to be simple. Nestled along the rugged coastline, this small town felt like a postcard come to life, quaint, quiet, and almost untouched by the chaos of modern life. For 7 years I called it home, sharing my days with Ezra, my husband, and Theo, our 6-year-old son. We were the picture-perfect family, or so everyone thought. Ezra was the kind of man who could charm anyone he met. A truck driver by trade and an amateur pilot on weekends, he always had stories to tell about his adventures on the road or up in the skies. He'd come home after long hauls with gifts for Theo, a toy car here, a model airplane there, and always made sure to kiss me hello before collapsing onto the couch. To the outside world, he was the epitome of a devoted husband and father. But lately something felt off. It started subtly, little things at first, like how he'd stay out later than usual during his layovers, or how his phone would buzz incessantly late at night, only for him to silence it quickly when I walked into the room. At first I chalked it up to stress from work. After all, driving cross-country and flying planes wasn't exactly easy. But then there were the excuses, the missed dinners, the canceled plans, the way he seemed more distant every time he returned from one of his trips. One evening as I sat folding laundry in our bedroom, I noticed something strange. His leather jacket hung over the back of a chair, and when I picked it up to hang it properly, a faint whiff of perfume hit me. It wasn't mine. My stomach churned, but I told myself not to jump to conclusions. Maybe it was just some random spill at a gas station or a hotel lobby, right? That same night, while Ezra showered, I couldn't shake the unease gnawing at me. Against my better judgment, I grabbed his phone from the kitchen counter where he'd left it charging. It wasn't locked. He never bothered locking it around me, which should have been comforting but instead felt oddly suspicious now. As I scrolled through his messages, my heart sank. There they were, texts between him and someone named Vivian. Flirty ones. Ones that made my blood run cold. "I miss you already," one read. "Can't wait to see you next week," another replied. My hands trembled as I put the phone back down. Who was this woman? And why did it feel like my entire world was crumbling beneath my feet? I didn't confront him that night. Instead, I lay awake beside him, staring at the ceiling, trying to piece together what I'd seen. Was this real? Or was I overreacting? Either way, I knew one thing for certain: my life and my marriage would never be the same again. The next morning I woke up exhausted, my mind still racing with questions. Over breakfast, Ezra kissed me on the forehead and asked if I slept well. Normally, his affectionate gestures would make me smile, but today they felt hollow, like a mask slipping ever so slightly. I nodded vaguely, pretending everything was fine, even though inside I was screaming. Later that day, I tried to distract myself by spending time with Theo. He was building Lego towers in the living room, completely absorbed in his own little world. Watching him laugh and chatter about nothing reminded me of why I needed to figure things out, for him. If Ezra really was hiding something, I owed it to Theo to protect him from whatever storm might be brewing. But the nagging doubt wouldn't leave me alone. That afternoon, while Theo napped, I found myself rifling through Ezra's belongings again. This time I discovered receipts tucked inside his wallet, hotel stays in cities far from any delivery route he'd mentioned. One dated 2 months ago showed charges for champagne and room service. Another listed a spa package for 2. Each slip of paper felt like a dagger piercing deeper into my chest. By the time Ezra came home that evening, I was a wreck. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, but fear held me back. What if I was wrong? What if confronting him tore apart the fragile facade of happiness we'd built? So instead, I forced a smile and asked about his trip. He answered casually, recounting tales of scenic highways and friendly truck stop attendants, none of which matched the evidence I'd uncovered. That night, as I lay in bed listening to Ezra's steady breathing beside me, I realized I couldn't ignore this anymore. Something had to give. But how do you confront the person you've loved for nearly a decade without losing yourself in the process? And then it hit me: I needed help. Someone objective, someone who could guide me through this mess without letting emotions cloud their judgment. Tomorrow I decided I'd reach out to Marlo. She'd know what to do. The next morning, I texted Marlo as soon as Ezra left for work. "We need to talk," I wrote, keeping it vague but urgent. Marlo responded almost immediately. "What's wrong?" she asked, her tone already shifting to concern. I hesitated, unsure of how much to reveal. Finally, I typed, "In person. Can you meet me at the cafe downtown?" When I arrived, Marlo was already there, sipping a latte and scrolling through her phone. She looked up as I approached, her sharp green eyes narrowing in suspicion. "You look like hell," she said bluntly. "What happened?" I slid into the seat across from her, clutching my coffee cup like a lifeline. "I think Ezra's cheating on me," I blurted out, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. Marlo froze, her spoon halfway to her mouth. "What makes you say that?" she asked cautiously. I recounted everything: the perfume-scented jacket, the flirty texts, the suspicious receipts. Marlo listened intently, her expression growing darker with each detail. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair, exhaling sharply. "Damn, Lila," she said. "This is bad." "I know," I whispered, tears welling up in my eyes. "But what do I do? I can't just accuse him without proof. And even if I do, how do I explain this to Theo? How do I protect him from all of this?" Marlo reached across the table, squeezing my hand. "You're not alone in this," she said firmly. "But you need to find out the truth before you act. Have you thought about hiring a private investigator?" "A private investigator?" The idea sounded extreme, like something out of a soap opera. But the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. If I confronted Ezra now, without solid evidence, he'd just deny everything and turn the tables on me. I needed proof, something undeniable. That evening, I spent hours researching local investigators online. Finally, I settled on one named Carter, whose website promised discretion and results. I called him the next day, my voice trembling as I explained what I needed. He assured me he'd handle the case personally and asked for a few details to get started. By the time we hung up, I felt a mix of relief and dread. Relief that I was finally taking action, and dread because I knew there was no turning back. Over the next few days, I tried to act normal around Ezra, but it was exhausting. Every time he smiled at me or hugged Theo, I felt a pang of guilt for doubting him. Yet, the evidence kept piling up. More receipts, more texts, and even a voicemail from Vivian that I accidentally stumbled upon while cleaning the house. "Hey babe," her sultry voice cooed. "Call me when you get this. I miss you." I replayed the message 3 times, each listen making me angrier. How could he do this? How could he lie to us so easily? But even as my anger grew, so did my fear. What if he found out I was investigating him? Would he lash out? Would he try to take Theo away from me? Marlo became my rock during those days, checking in daily to make sure I was holding up. "You're stronger than you think," she reminded me whenever I doubted myself. "Don't let him control you anymore." Despite her encouragement, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was walking a tightrope, one wrong step away from disaster. But I knew I had to keep going. For Theo. For myself. 2 weeks later, Carter called to set up a meeting. My stomach churned as I drove to his office, located in a nondescript building downtown. The receptionist greeted me with a polite smile and led me to a small conference room, where Carter was waiting. He was a tall, wiry man with graying hair and a calm demeanor that immediately put me at ease. "Mrs. Harper," he began, gesturing for me to sit. "I've gathered some information regarding your husband." He opened a thin folder on the table and slid it toward me. Inside were photos, documents, and notes detailing Ezra's activities over the past month. As I flipped through the contents, my heart sank lower with each page. There were pictures of Ezra entering and leaving hotels with Vivian, candid shots of them laughing together at restaurants, and even a copy of a lease agreement for an apartment under his name in San Francisco. According to Carter, Ezra had been renting the place for over 2 years, using it as a rendezvous spot with Vivian whenever he claimed to be on the road. "This can't be real," I murmured, my hands shaking as I stared at the evidence. Carter nodded sympathetically. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Harper. It's never easy to face the truth, but at least now you know where you stand." I thanked him numbly and left the office, feeling like the ground had been ripped out from under me. How could Ezra deceive me so thoroughly? How could he look me in the eye every day and pretend everything was fine while carrying on a secret life behind my back? That night I sat alone in my car, parked near the beach, staring out at the dark waves crashing against the shore. My mind raced with conflicting emotions: anger, betrayal, sadness, and a deep sense of loss. I thought about Theo sleeping soundly in his bed, blissfully unaware of the turmoil surrounding him. How could I shield him from this? How could I explain that his father wasn't the hero he believed him to be? Eventually, I drove home determined to confront Ezra. But when I walked through the door, he greeted me with a warm smile and a kiss, acting as though nothing was wrong. "How was your day?" he asked casually, settling onto the couch with a beer. For a moment, I considered blurting everything out right then and there. But something stopped me. Maybe it was the memory of Marlowe's advice. Don't let him manipulate you. Or maybe it was the realization that I needed a plan, a way to protect myself and Theo before I made my move. Instead, I forced a smile and said, "It was fine. Just ran some errands." Then I retreated to the bedroom, where I spent the rest of the night staring at the ceiling, plotting my next steps. The confrontation came sooner than I expected. 2 days after receiving Carter's report, I decided I couldn't wait any longer. I printed out copies of the photos and documents, stuffing them into a manila envelope. Then I waited until Theo was safely at school before sitting Ezra down in the living room. "What's this about?" he asked, raising an eyebrow as I placed the envelope on the coffee table. "Why so serious?" I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was about to happen. "I hired a private investigator," I said evenly, watching his expression shift from curiosity to alarm. "They followed you for the past few weeks. Care to explain what they found?" Ezra's face turned pale, but he quickly masked it with indignation. "Are you serious? You went behind my back and hired someone to spy on me? What the hell, Lila?" I ignored his outburst, opening the envelope and spreading the photos across the table. "These are pictures of you with Vivian," I said, my voice trembling despite my efforts to stay calm. "Hotels, restaurants, even an apartment you're renting in San Francisco. Care to tell me what's going on?" For a moment he just stared at the evidence, his jaw tightening. Then in a flash he slammed his fist on the table. "You don't understand," he shouted. "It's not what it looks like." "Oh really?" I shot back, my anger bubbling to the surface. "Because it looks like you've been lying to me for years. Cheating on me, betraying our family, and dragging Theo into your mess." He leaned forward, his eyes pleading. "Listen, I love you, okay? You and Theo mean everything to me. But sometimes I just need an escape. Someone who understands the pressure I'm under." His words hit me like a punch to the gut. Not only was he admitting to the affair, but he was also trying to justify it, as if my feelings didn't matter. "An escape?" I repeated incredulously. "So I'm just supposed to accept that you're sneaking around with another woman because life is hard? Is that what you're saying?" Ezra sighed, running a hand through his hair. "No, that's not what I'm saying. I messed up, all right? I should have handled things differently. But please don't throw away everything we've built over this." I shook my head, tears streaming down my face. "You don't get it, do you? This isn't just about cheating. It's about trust. About respect. And you've destroyed both." For a moment, he looked genuinely remorseful. But then his tone shifted, becoming manipulative. "Come on, Lila. Think about Theo. Do you really want to rip his family apart over this? Is that fair to him?" His words stung, hitting the one nerve I hadn't been able to ignore, the impact on our son. For a split second I wavered, wondering if I was being too harsh. But then I remembered Marlowe's warning. Don't let him control you. With renewed resolve I stood up and grabbed the envelope. "I'll be staying at Marlowe's for a while," I said firmly. "We'll figure out the next steps later. But know this. I'm done letting you manipulate me." As I walked out the door, I felt a strange mix of liberation and terror. The battle was far from over, but for the first time in weeks, I felt like I was taking control of my life. Staying at Marlowe's felt both liberating and suffocating. On one hand, I was free from Ezra's presence and his constant stream of excuses and apologies. On the other, I couldn't escape the weight of my decision. Every time Theo asked when we were going home, I felt a pang of guilt. Was I doing the right thing by separating him from his father? Or was I selfishly prioritizing my own pain? Marlowe did her best to support me, bringing over comfort food and offering a shoulder to cry on. "You're doing the right thing," she reassured me one evening as we sat in her cozy living room. "Sometimes protecting yourself means stepping away from the people who hurt you." Her words helped, but they didn't erase the doubts lingering in my mind. What if Ezra truly changed? What if he meant it when he said he loved us? These questions haunted me, especially late at night when sleep eluded me. Meanwhile, Ezra wasn't giving up. He called daily, sending long voicemails begging for forgiveness. "Please, Lila, let me make this right," he pleaded in one message. "I'll do anything. Therapy, counseling, whatever it takes. Just don't give up on us." At first, his persistence infuriated me. How dare he act like the victim after everything he'd done? But as the days turned into weeks, his tone shifted. He became softer, more vulnerable, almost desperate. "I can't imagine life without you and Theo," he confessed in another voicemail. "Please just give me one chance to prove I'm worth it." His words tugged at my heartstrings, making me question whether I was being too harsh. Could I forgive him? Should I forgive him? The uncertainty gnawed at me, leaving me torn between anger and hope. One afternoon, while Theo played in the backyard, I confided in Marlo. "I don't know what to do," I admitted, tears streaming down my face. Part of me wants to believe he's sincere, but another part of me is terrified of getting hurt again. Marlo listened patiently, then offered a suggestion. "Maybe you need to hear Vivian's side of the story," she said gently. "If nothing else, it might give you clarity." The idea terrified me. Facing Ezra's mistress felt like walking into the lion's den. But deep down I knew Marlo was right. If I wanted answers, I had to confront the source directly. That night, I pulled up the cafe address Carter had provided and added it to my mental checklist. Meeting Vivian wouldn't be easy, but it was a necessary step, one that might finally bring closure to this nightmare. The cafe where Vivian worked was tucked into a quiet corner of Eureka, its windows fogged with condensation from the morning chill. I hesitated outside, my heart pounding as I stared at the neon sign that read Brew Haven. Inside, Vivian would be waiting, Ezra's other woman, the one who had unknowingly torn apart my family. Taking a deep breath, I pushed open the door and stepped inside. Vivian was easy to spot. She stood behind the counter, her dark hair pulled back into a messy bun, her hands deftly steaming milk for a latte. She looked younger than I expected, her face unlined but tinged with exhaustion. When she glanced up and saw me standing there, her eyes widened in surprise. For a moment, neither of us spoke. "Lila?" she asked cautiously, setting down the coffee cup. "What are you doing here?" I slid into a seat at the counter, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. "We need to talk," I said simply. "About Ezra." Her expression shifted quickly from confusion to guilt. "Oh God," she whispered, her hands trembling as she wiped them on her apron. "You know, don't you?" "I know enough," I replied, pulling out a photo of her and Ezra from the envelope I'd brought. "Care to fill in the blanks?" She flinched at the sight of the picture, then sighed deeply. "I didn't mean for this to happen," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "He told me he was leaving you, that he loved me, but he never followed through." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. So Ezra had been playing both of us, feeding Vivian lies while keeping me trapped in his web of deceit. I felt a surge of anger, not just toward him, but also toward her for allowing herself to become part of his scheme. Yet, beneath the anger there was pity. Like me, she had been manipulated by a man who thrived on control. "We're both victims," I said finally, my tone softening. "But I'm done letting him win." Vivian nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. "I'll stay away from him," she promised. I should have done it sooner. As I left the cafe, I felt a strange sense of clarity. Ezra had used both of us, weaving a tangled mess of lies and broken promises. But now, armed with the truth, I was ready to cut him out of my life completely. Filing for divorce was the hardest decision I'd ever made. Not because I doubted it was the right choice, but because I knew Ezra wouldn't go down without a fight. And I was right. Within days of serving him the papers, he unleashed a full-scale campaign to win back custody of Theo. He hired an expensive lawyer, someone known for their ruthless tactics, and began bombarding me with texts and calls. "You're ruining our son's life," he wrote in one message. "Do you really want him growing up without a father?" His words stung, not because they were true, but because they tapped into my deepest fears. What if Theo resented me for taking him away from Ezra? What if I failed as a single mother? Each doubt gnawed at me, making it harder to hold my ground. Marlo became my lifeline during those dark days. Don't let him gaslight you, she reminded me whenever I wavered. He's trying to manipulate you again. Stay strong. Her encouragement gave me the strength to push forward. I hired my own lawyer, a sharp-witted woman named Rachel who specialized in high-conflict divorces. Together, we built a case highlighting Ezra's infidelity, emotional manipulation, and lack of involvement in Theo's day-to-day life. The battle dragged on for months, each court hearing more grueling than the last. Ezra showed up to every session looking polished and remorseful, painting himself as the victim of a vindictive wife. But Rachel was relentless, presenting evidence that exposed his lies and undermined his credibility. Meanwhile, the community rallied around me. Friends and neighbors who had once admired Ezra began to see him for who he truly was, a charmer with a dark side. Their support buoyed me, reminding me that I wasn't alone in this fight. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the judge delivered their verdict. Custody was awarded solely to me, citing Ezra's manipulative behavior and failure to prioritize Theo's best interests. As the gavel struck, I exhaled a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. It was over, or so I thought. In the weeks following the trial, I threw myself into rebuilding my life. A local women's group invited me to join their meetings, offering a safe space to share my story and connect with others who had endured similar struggles. At first, I hesitated. Opening up about my pain felt too raw, too vulnerable. But Marlo insisted. "You'll feel better," she promised. "Trust me." She was right. Sitting in that circle of women, listening to their stories of survival and resilience, I began to heal. They taught me how to set boundaries, how to recognize red flags, and most importantly, how to love myself again. "You deserve happiness," one member told me during a particularly emotional session. "Don't let anyone take that away from you." Theo adjusted to our new routine faster than I expected. Without Ezra's constant interference, we grew closer, spending lazy afternoons at the park or baking cookies together in the kitchen. His laughter filled the house, chasing away the lingering shadows of our past. Still, remnants of Ezra lingered. He occasionally sent gifts or letters, claiming he missed Theo and wanted to make things right. But I refused to engage, knowing any contact would only reopen old wounds. Instead, I focused on creating a stable, loving environment for my son, one free from manipulation and fear. One evening, as Theo and I sat on the couch watching cartoons, I realized something profound. I wasn't the same person I'd been before all this began. Gone was the timid, uncertain woman who had allowed Ezra to dictate her life. In her place stood someone stronger, braver, and more determined than ever to protect what mattered most. Months passed, and life settled into a rhythm I hadn't thought possible. Theo thrived in school, his teachers praising his creativity and kindness. Me? I rediscovered passions I'd long forgotten, painting, writing, even gardening. Slowly but surely, I began to envision a future beyond Ezra's shadow. Marlo noticed the change in me too. One Saturday afternoon, she showed up at my door with a mischievous grin. "I have someone I want you to meet," she announced, dragging me to a nearby bookstore. That's where I met Caleb, a quiet, thoughtful man who worked as a librarian. Unlike Ezra, Caleb listened more than he spoke, his gentle demeanor putting me at ease. We started talking regularly, sharing stories about books, music, and life. Though romance wasn't on my mind, his presence reminded me that love could exist without toxicity. Still, moving forward wasn't easy. Some nights, memories of Ezra crept into my dreams, leaving me restless and uneasy. But each morning I woke up determined to focus on the present, to cherish the moments with Theo and embrace the possibilities ahead. By spring, Theo and I decided to start fresh. We packed up our belongings and moved to a cozy cottage near the beach. Watching the waves crash against the shore became a daily ritual, symbolizing the ebb and flow of life itself. For the first time in years, I felt hopeful. Maybe happiness wasn't lost forever. It was waiting patiently for me to claim it. Time has a way of healing even the deepest wounds. Over the years, Ezra faded into the background, his attempts to re-enter our lives growing fewer and farther between. Eventually, he disappeared altogether, leaving only faint echoes of the chaos he once caused. For me, life became a tapestry of small joys. Theo grew into a remarkable young boy, his curiosity and kindness mirroring the values I worked so hard to instill. Together, we explored tide pools, flew kites on windy afternoons, and shared countless bedtime stories. Writing became my sanctuary, a way to process my journey and inspire others facing similar struggles. My memoir, titled Breathing Fresh Air, chronicled my escape from a toxic marriage and my path toward self-discovery. Readers reached out, thanking me for giving voice to their own silent battles. As for Caleb, he remained a steadfast companion, supporting me without overshadowing my independence. Our relationship blossomed naturally, rooted in mutual respect and understanding. Though we weren't rushing toward anything, I couldn't deny the warmth his presence brought to my life. One evening, as Theo and I watched the sun dip below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, I reflected on how far we'd come. The road had been long and arduous, but every step had led us here, to a place of peace and possibility. I finally decided to live for myself and my son, I wrote in the final pages of my book. Freedom feels like breathing fresh air after years of suffocation. And for the first time I believed it.